Live?
Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dun da dun da 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 dun dun ba dun 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 da dun da da dum ba da dun 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 bum ba da dum ba da dun 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 dun. Wow, look at everyone. Hello. Hi. How are you? You're all looking good. I can't see your faces, but I see who you are, and it really is fun to see everyone. So, if you're new here and you don't know me, my name is Joette Calabrese. I'm a homeopath. For over 3 decades, I'm a mom who raised her kids using only homeopathy, and I'm a homeopathy teacher and educator. So, I'm your teacher. I love being your teacher. So if you already know me, welcome. So my guess is, as I say every week, if you're here, it's probably because you're interested in knowing how to take care of yourself, your family, your pets, the livestock that you might have, even wildlife, and even plants, I might add. And or you already know about homeopathy. If you don't know much about homeopathy, then either way, it doesn't matter. I'm here to teach you. And every week, pretty much every Monday night at Eastern Standard Time, if we don't have a problem with the internet, we go through my Materia Medica, which is looks just like this, and you can purchase it should you be interested on my website, joettecalabrese.com. But if you don't have it, no problem. You don't have to go along with me. You don't have to follow word for word. But tonight we are going to talk about. I'm skipping around a little bit. So we're going to talk about something regarding urinary tract infections. But first, I want to say hello to folks. So and let's see, mighties, my mighties, beautiful night here in North Carolina. I know I'm in New York State, and it is beautiful here. Absolutely. Hi, Rachna. Was okay. Let's see, Rockland County, New York, says Thomas. And yes, last week's is up live here on the Mighties page. You're absolutely right. Hi, everyone from Saskatchewan. I cannot hear anything. Can everyone else hear? Connecting with Joette online, having a little trouble. Perry, are we having trouble? No connection so far, says April in Sacramento. Yes, it says it has not yet started. Oh, well, we're starting now. So let's see if everyone can hear me. I'm assuming you're not. Let me check out with Facebook Live. You were okay. Okay, good.
Refresh the page.
Yeah, refresh the page. Refresh the page, Mighties, and Facebook Livers. Hello from Southern Indiana, says Jenny, and from hello from Hawaii. Hi, Kelly. Nice to see someone from Hawaii. It's a beautiful place. I haven't been there in many, many years. You can hear me. Okay, no problem on Facebook. Great. Thanks, Jody. I can hear you. Wonderful. Hello. Hello.
On Facebook. Just go up. Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. No, I know where I am. Just reading the
Double
folks here.
click it.
Yep, it's already running here.
Double.
Yep. Okay. All righty. And so let's
It'll pop in.
silence that. Okay, good. Good. I refreshed. I can hear after refreshing. It is refreshing to refresh. So today I skipped around a little bit, and the reason I did that is because I've been seem to be getting a lot of people who with urinary tract infections lately. A lot of folks, a lot of students, people telling me they have urinary tract infections, and I want to go medicine by medicine by medicine in order in my Materia Medica. But you know what? It really is nice to be able to pivot and use and teach these medicines that are specific to what's going on. And maybe you haven't noticed that, but I certainly have lots of concerns about urinary tract infections. Now, I've written a lot about urinary tract infections. And so this is not the medicine I'm going to teach tonight is not number one. It's about number 3, maybe number 4. for urinary tract infections. The first two, Cantharis, Metaurinum, Cantharis 30, Cantharis 200. Check it out on my blog if you want to know more about how to use those. I like Sarsaparilla. There's no doubt about that. But I also love this medicine, and it is called Thuja occidentalis. Thuja actually has a J in it, but it's silent. So it's Thuja, and it is arborvitae. And if you live up north, also, arborvitae are very big in Italy. You see lots of tree-lined turning roads throughout the countryside of Italy, and they're usually Thuja or arborvitaes. And you, my friends, can make your own tincture from that plant. If you look at what it looks like, it's the flat fronds. I don't know if I'd call them leaves. They're not really, I would call them fronds, like palm fronds. And they grow everywhere. I've planted them many times in the front of my house because they're so hardy and they withstand snow, they withstand heat. I don't see them in Florida. I don't know that I'd see them any further south than the Mason-Dixon line, but they certainly are prevalent up in the northern states. And so you can get those those fronds from the occidentalis tree and macerate them. I've actually done it in a food processor, but I've reconsidered that through the years, and instead I would rather macerate them with a mortar and pestle. So because it's really, I want it to be as that movement with the hand in the stone bowl, and then you put that in alcohol, such as vodka or grain alcohol, such as Devil's Spring or something like that, and you put it aside, and you're making a tincture, and you put it aside for a fortnight. One of my favorite words. Love those British terms. And you let it sit there for a fortnight, which is 2 weeks, and then you have a tincture, and that's a great medicine for not just urinary tract infections. Actually, in that situation, I would not use Thuja occidentalis for urinary tract infection in a mother tincture. I would actually save that mother tincture for placing on warts. Now, let me tell you about this. When we use it as a mother tincture, I think it does really great work, meaning we actually place it on the warts, and you do it twice daily. It's direct, it's right on the wart, and you let it dry. Just kind of let it dry in the sun or something, and I think it works beautifully. But when it comes to warts and when it comes to urinary tract infections, this is not my first medicine taken as a homeopathic. As a homeopathic, Thuja occidentalis is actually about, as I said, about the third or fourth medicine down the line. Now, what do I mean by that? This is what I mean. Yes, have one in my yard, says CB. Yes. Does it matter which variety of arborvitae? You want to get the Thuja occidentalis, and that, because that's the Latin term, that is the botanical name. So although I'm calling it arborvitae, which it is, you might want to be really specific. It happens a lot that we need to be very specific with the botanical name. So what I would do is, when I say it's not the first choice I choose for urinary tract infection, or is it the first medicine that I would choose for warts, it would be maybe third or fourth down the line. And that means that I would use the other medicines first. For urinary tract infections, as I said, I start with Cantharis 30, and we use it. If it's very extreme, then I would use it every hour if it's really severe. If it's not so severe, then maybe every 3 to 6 to 12 hours, depending on the severity of the condition. If we don't see a change, and I mean even a small change within a day, or a day and a half or so, then I would go back to the drawing board and go to Cantharis 200C and use it in the same fashion. I talk about that on my blog. Metaurinum is another one, and Metaurinum I was always using a 200 potency. That's a Banerjee protocol. And I also use Sarsaparilla is another one that I've used for urinary tract infections. And so when you don't know what to use, we start with the protocol. In all conditions in which you have the protocol that I teach, that's a Banerjee protocol, for example, I always urge people to look at that first. Go with the protocol first and then consider something else if it's not acting. So it's the same thing with warts. With warts, I like anacardium. I think it's a very good medicine for warts. Antimonium crude is a very good medicine for warts. But if they don't act, then I go to Thuja occidentalis. And in that case, I would use a 30th potency. All right. How do you spell those? Okay, so Thuja, 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 Thuja. You don't need to know how to spell occidentalis, folks, because there's only one kind of Thuja that you'll find, generally speaking, in homeopathic pharmacies. And I'm going to remind you that when you purchase your medicines, unless you're a student or a client of mine, and in that case, you might want to purchase from OHM Pharma, because you are able to do so. But if you're not a student or client of mine, go to Boiron, Boiron. Boiron. They're out of France, but they have facilities in the US and Canada. And go there, and when you check out, at the very end, there's a little checkout box where you can insert my name, Joette, Joette, and you'll get a discount. I do not have an affiliate program with them. They have offered that to me, and I've said, no, thank you. I would rather give a discount to my students, people who follow me. I want people to be very interested in using homeopathy. And if I can encourage them by offering them a discount through Boiron, then I would like to do that. So, okay. Antimonium crude, antimonium, 2 words, antimonium crudum, is the one that I often use, as well as anacardium for warts. Oh, here we go. Lisa's got it all written. Thank you, Lisa. Nice job. Can we get a discount even when Boiron's in Canada? I don't think that's so. I'm so sorry. I don't, because it's a different company there. I mean, it's still Boiron, but it's a different organization. So it's not, I don't believe you can do that. I'm very sorry. I know that would be helpful to you because everything is so expensive in Canada. All right. For potency for the warts, I've used 6s and I've also used 30s, and I always use it twice daily. Let's see what folks say. 2 questions. What do you recommend for interstitial cystitis? I would urge you to, these are the same medicines for interstitial cystitis. I would urge you to look at my blog. I don't think I actually use the word interstitial cystitis there, but should you be interested, I do discuss that in 2 courses. One is alternative to antibiotics, and the other is feminopathy. But if you pay attention and you're careful with how you read, you will get your answers simply by reading my blogs on urinary tract infections. What if you get, I like this question, a small amount of change on the UTI, but it just keeps lingering and worsening and bettering week after week. Okay, lingering but improving while taking the medicine, I'm assuming, means you're moving in the right direction. So as long as it's getting better, even though it's lingering, as long as it's improving, you're likely onto the right medicine. Okay? Blue tubes. I've been taking it all my life. That's Boiron in blue tubes. Hi from Tennessee. Anacardium, you bet. No, you're the best too. Would these work for flat warts, for warts? Pedunculated warts, itchy warts, bleeding warts, plantar's warts, warts on the knees, warts on the nose, warts. It matters not the kind, or else I would tell you. So just so you know that, folks, don't try to parse it out so much that it's only this kind of wart. They are for warts. Okay, so that you get that clear. And that's true for a lot of conditions. Love your book. You too can protect from the flu. Okay, great. I'm glad you enjoy it. Thuja, also known, okay. Yes, also known as northern white cedar. Thank you very much. That is another. Did I put that in here? I did not put that in my book, in my Materia Medica, but northern white cedar. Absolutely. It's a type of cedar. Can homeopathy fix vertigo to a big bad you know what? Go to my blog and look at vertigo. Here's the thing. Generally speaking, etiology, this is a generalization. Etiology matters not. What's etiology? The cause. It could be idiopathic, which means we have no idea what the cause is, or it could be from a cold, or it could be from a head injury. It doesn't mean that it is not vertigo. It's still vertigo. Now, if the medicine that I teach on my blog, for example, of what to use for vertigo has been used and there's no change, then indeed we're going to go back and we might start looking at the etiology. Could it have been as a result of a head injury? Could it have been as a result of menopause? Could it have? But we don't theorize. Don't theorize, folks. Use what you know is part of the case, okay? Berberis and Meterinum with great results after trying other ones. Good job. Yes, Berberis is great for the kidneys, for the urinary tract as well. Does the man in the picture behind you have a mask on? Yes, he has. Isn't that hysterical? It's the kind of mask that I actually like. Now there's a mask.
Only his eyes.
Yeah, it's only his eyes. Yep. I mean, you can't see his mouth. It was painted by a friend of my brother's and mine. So it's kind of fun. All right. Let's just see here. The Banerjees use Meterinum for the first line, but you like Cantharis first. The Banerjees use it both ways. After spending years with them, I saw them in the book. They do it one way. In their clinics, they have used both ways. So I teach both ways. And since Meterinum is a little more difficult to get a hold of, I usually start with Cantharis 30. Okay. Question from your book. You mentioned 6X, 6C, 30X, 30C can be used interchangeably. How is this so? And is one better over the other? The reason that I say that they are interchangeable often is because I don't know from where you hail. There was a time that in the United States, the only medicines you could get were X's. 30X was the most popular, but 200X, 6X, that was it. That's all we could get. Then suddenly things started to change, and I'm going to say the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, and suddenly everything was about C's. So I don't differentiate, or let's put it this way, I don't tell you exactly what potency to use unless it is a protocol. So in that case, I will tell you exactly what to use when it is a Banerjee protocol, because it really does matter. But when I'm teaching, such as in my book and in some of my classes, if I don't give it to you, then X and C's are pretty interchangeable. Does it matter if the infection is embedded or within a biofilm? What do you think? Think about this. Let's not make this complicated. Let's also not theorize. If it's a urinary tract infection, it's a urinary tract infection. That's the way I want you to think about this. If it's eczema, it's eczema. Got it? If it's menstrual pain, it's menstrual pain. It doesn't matter if it's menstrual pain I'm trying to think, after someone's eaten ice cream, or if it's a menstrual pain that is from a woman who has just had a child. It is menstrual pain. Okay, I want you to start thinking that way. And you don't parse out until the first medicines that I teach don't act. That's when we start digging a little deeper. Okay, so let's start with what's the most simple so that you can really get a move on this. Africa, I think, anacardium and antimony. Okay, word remedy. Okay. And all right. I think the anacardium and antimonium are the wort. Okay, let's just see. It's moving along so quickly. I'm sorry. I can't. It's very hard for me to read. Do you take it for 8 weeks or until it is better? if someone has an infection, such as a urinary tract infection, we want to see a shift long before 8 weeks, if at all possible. So we use it until it's better because it's an acute. We're going to assume that it's an acute. An acute medicine means, an acute case means that it's got a short-lived, generally speaking, a short-lived time that it's going to act or that it's going to be a problem. If the urinary tract infection is a chronic situation where it keeps coming over and over and over and over, now we could call that chronic. And indeed, it could take more than 8 weeks. But generally speaking, if it's a urinary tract infection that has just begun, the last time someone had that kind of a condition was maybe, I don't know, a year ago, I would call that an acute. And then we expect that to start shifting within a few days, and we stop when the medicine has acted, fully acted, and the condition is done. However, if the condition returns, we return to the medicine. You're absolutely right. We return to the medicine. Oh, that's a great question, Dolly. Will you be revisiting Sakali Core since last week's live got interrupted? You know what? I think I will do that. I will talk about that next week. We'll talk more in depth about Sakali Core. That was SECALE. Is a kidney infection considered a UTI? Yes, it is. It's still part of the urinary tract. I love Thuja 30 for 3 days prior and 3 days after required. Required in also for helping to unsuppress those procedures. I know it will not undo something changes caused by the new procedure. Would you still think a person who has been changed could let's just see here what this person's saying, what Alicia's saying, could still benefit from the detox? I have a friend who has deep regrets. I don't treat unless there's a condition, generally speaking. Now, we can use something prophylactically, yes, but if we see a condition, then by all means we use the medicines. If we don't see a condition, then you're going to need a little more. I'm afraid we're just going to have to go to a little more information on that. Okay. What else? We have a dog with lots of warts around her head. I'm wondering if I need to use something topical as well as homeopathic remedy for the warts to go. Sometimes people do that. I don't think it's necessary, perhaps, but some people actually do that. They put it topically on the warts, usually their plantar's warts, or on the hands or knees, and then they use it orally as well. A vague diagnosis of contaminated bladder, minor symptoms, but pressure and uncomfortable. What do you, please, I'm sure she's asking, what do you do, or wait for the culture? Contaminated bladder. I have never heard of that. I swear. Always coming up with something, aren't they? What would a bladder be contaminated with? An infection? So here's the question I would ask. If someone has been found to have a contaminated bladder, I would imagine it's because something is going wrong with the bladder. There's either there's urinary frequency, there's urgency, there might be pain before or after, there might be a dribbling of urine. So something, I'm guessing, must have occurred to bring that person to go to find out what it is, such as a diagnosis. And that's what the diagnosis that's what they came up with. So if there is an infection, by all means, I would use these homeopathic medicines for infections. But if it's not an infection, I would still consider these medicines because I would assume that there are symptoms. We don't treat something that's not really symptomatic, generally speaking. Okay, I have to speak in generalizations because there are so many conditions that humans suffer, and this is such a broad subject. But generally speaking, we do need symptoms in order to know, or at least the name of a condition. Of course, that's an odd name for a condition. So, all right. Berberis worked only 25%. That means you need another medicine. There's no doubt about it. And generally, these conditions are female. It does happen to men as well, but generally it's for women. And so I cover it very thoroughly in feminopathy and even more thoroughly in alternatives to antibiotics. If the origin of the issue isn't that necessary, if you know that nausea is being caused from a pharmaceutical, do you treat the nausea or the chronic disease that from having taken the drug? If you hit your head and you go into a coma, we're not going to treat coma without considering that we know that it was from a head injury. If you get a laceration and from an accident and you get an infection, we are going to treat not just the infection, but the fact that it was from a laceration. Hence, if you know that a pharmaceutical caused trouble and shortly after, you know this, not that, gee, I used to take pharmaceuticals years ago and I've never had really, my stomach's not so great, so it must be that. That's theoretical. But if it's this, hence that, and undeniable, by all means, you're going to look at it like that. And I might add, I've written blogs on that. So it's from drugs, pharmaceuticals, after surgery. There are a couple different ways I've written about it, I believe. Okay, what about a dog who gets so excited and he pees every time I come home? I would consider that not a urinary tract infection. I would consider that overexcitement. And so I would treat the behavior of the dog first. However, if that doesn't act, then I would start considering one of these medicines, no doubt. If someone has a problem with not being able to empty their bladder all the way, would that be an indicator of a UTI? Only if it causes trouble. So not being able to empty, is it something that the person is experiencing? You don't have to answer this. Or is this as a result of a test that showed that, well, you know what? I think that you're just not emptying fully. If the person is suffering a condition, then we treat it. If it's a diagnosis from which there's no there's no suffering associated with it, then I would not treat it, and I would not look at it that way. All righty, let's see what else we've got. If camphor is used as part of a protocol, would it antidote others? Yes, it certainly could. And I would not worry about it doesn't undo all the years of homeopathic medicines that have worked so well. It stops the action of the medicines at that time and that moment in time. Okay. Let's see if we've got anything else. Would these apply to a weak bladder, frequent urination? Not urinary tract infections, but they are pretty much the same medicines. We just don't use them in the same fashion, which means that if there's an infection, we use it pretty frequently, especially if it's an intense infection. Then we're going to use it every hour. If it's very extreme, every 3 hours, every 6 hours. But if it's not and it's more of a chronic condition, then we're going to open it up and use it perhaps only twice daily. My dog had some weird growth when we first got him. We used apple cider vinegar several times a day, and it completely went away after a few days. First flattened out. I wasn't sure what it was, but now I'm wondering if it was a wart. I would wonder if it was a wart too. I think that's very likely. I have had clients who have reported to me and students that apple cider vinegar has removed warts. Yes. Let's see what else we've got. What else we've got on this side? Go back to Facebook Live. A lot of dog questions tonight. What about a dog who gets so excited? Okay, got that. What about a dog who has loose stool? Different story. I have talked about that though. I've talked about that on my, I think if it wasn't my blog, now I can't remember. All righty. Joette, please do a night on animal remedies. I'm happy to do that, Glenn, but let me just tell you this, that the difference between animal remedies and human remedies is that animals get diseases that humans don't, or conditions. Humans don't get fleas. So that would be a subject in and of itself. But if a dog has anxiety, it's the same medicines as we'd use for a person who has anxiety. If a dog has nausea, they're eating grass outside, then and you can pretty much assume that it's nausea, then you're going to give the same medicines as you would give to a human. And it's the same thing with broken leg or eczema or lacerations. It's the same medicine, same potencies, same frequencies. Everything is the same, but many of the conditions are much different. I think we have got it. Okay, Harry says, Perry, no video interference up north as opposed to south. Is that a clue to help you? Thanks, Harry. You're making Perry giggle. All righty. I think we've got it. It is now 8:31. I need to dash off. I'm teaching a group, Gateway to Homeopathy group, and I really urge you, if you've not joined any of my groups, they're very inexpensive, folks, and you get to meet people who are of like mind. So I urge you to think about that. You just go to my blog and you can join in, and that's where a lot of my mighties have come from. So they come from having done those study groups and meeting, as I said, very inexpensive. And I also have many people, I should mention, who join a group, buy the book. They have to buy my book. Then they join a group, usually about 10, 20, 30 people from all over the world, mostly North America. And they love it so much that when they finish that 8 weeks, they join another group, or they stay with that teacher, because we have teachers who do this, or leaders, I should say. And they just keep doing it over and over and over and over again. And then they get to know each other and they help each other. So with that, I'm going to say God bless all of you and a great week to all of you. And I'll see you next week. Have a great week, folks.